All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be doing our 2022 preview and prediction for the Baylor Bears, fresh off a Big 12 championship. Dave Aranda's back for his third season as head coach, went from 2-7 to 12-2 this past year. Jeff Grimes, his second year as the offensive coordinator, is also a tight end coach here for the Bears. And Ron Roberts, he's back for his third year as the defensive coordinator. 32nd season total as a coach. And then, looking at the offseason headlines, Gary Bohannon and R.J. Sneed, two starters on offense, transfer out of the program. Sneed to Colorado. Blake Shapen, he takes over under center. He was calm, cool, and collected in the few starts he had at the back end of the year, and it's earned him a starting spot here under center. His biggest concern, though, is durability. He's 6 foot, 190, not very big in terms of size, and he's got plenty of grit. That might get him in harm's way. It certainly did at times last year in his few starts. From a passing standpoint, though, very good touch, makes good decisions, has no issue throwing in the tight windows. I believe in that first half against Oklahoma State, he was like 100% for most of that first half from a completion percentage standpoint. End of the year, 80% comp rate. Struggled to run it heavily in the Oklahoma State game, though, but he certainly carried them a little bit on offense. I don't believe they scored in the second half. They were kind of reserved with him last year. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. I think outside the Texas Tech game, this is the only game they really kind of opened the playbook up a bit. But mainly it was a strong running game that led the way, 219 yards per game on the ground. They lose their top two backs, though, Abraham Smith, Treston Ebner. Those guys are both gone. Tay McWilliams, 6'1", 211. He takes over as starter. I think him and Craig Williams will certainly battle for the starting job. 7.5 yards per carry in 2020 for Craig Williams in 4 games. Highly explosive. Mainly a guy that can get to the edge. He didn't play much at all last year. I think he was injured. While at the same time, they also had 2 phenomenal backs, so he did not see the field much. Looking at the offensive line, these guys will be running behind, though. They get back 4 starters on a really good unit. They were great in pass protection last year, 5.3 yards per carry. 5 of those guys are now seniors on the offensive line. A new starter, of course. Center Jacob Gall, left tackle Connor Galvin. Those guys are 2 of the nation's best. They were big in allowing this running game to flourish. I like Grant Miller as well. Keith Khalil, right tackle. I think Miles Jeffrey, I think he's the new one in the starting lineup. But this is a pretty solid bunch up front. I think this running game is certainly going to fall off a little bit just because of the skill they lose. But Craig Williams, with that explosiveness, it could certainly stay right where it was last year. It'll be interesting to see how they use Blake Shapen's legs. He's plenty capable as well. Looking at the receiving core, I'm a little concerned. They lose 4 of the top 5 pass catchers from a year ago. Very young receiving core. Not much tape on these guys. They, of course, they lose Sneed, Tyquan Thornton, and Drew Estrada as well. I do think tight end Ben Sims coming back. That's certainly big news. 6 touchdowns a year ago, 360-plus yards on 31 receptions. So the Bears receiving core, very thin, I think, coming into the year. Monterian Baldwin, 5'9", 165, incredibly undersized, but he's speedy, versatile. They used him as a running back in the kick return last year. He'll certainly be, I think, a starting receiver this fall as well. Armani Winfield, their highest-rated recruit. He might make an impact, I think, certainly is due to be one of those breakout players here young. Josh Cameron as well. Very young group. Hall Presley, redshirt freshman, another guy that you should look out for. Looking at the defense, they returned 7 starters. Coming into last year, I felt the defense would be the best in the Big 12. I still only picked them to win 5 or 6 games, but they were, I think, the second best, right behind Oklahoma State. This defense was phenomenal, regardless. The top 20 against the run, 7th in tackles for loss nationally. Siaka Ika, 6'4", 350. And then Jackson Player, they run a 3-3-5 defense, so they're going to have to find a way to get him and Player on the field. The Tulsa transfer had 15 tackles for loss, 5 sacks last year. He's one of the top defensive tackles and was one of the best offseason acquisitions. Player is from Waco, so that certainly helped in coming back home and playing for Dave Aranda. Like what they have up front. TJ Franklin had 4 sacks. Gabe Hall, 6 sacks. They're going to slip into the starting lineup. They're going to look to boost a pass rush. It was pretty solid last year, but it was nothing special. I really like what they have on the interior, though, with Ika and Player. Again, I don't know how they're going to get them both on the field, but they will certainly figure it out because they would have a big advantage against opponents if they can get both of those players on the field. Dylan Doyle, back for his 3rd year as a starting linebacker. Back-to-back seasons, he's ranked 2nd on the team in tackles, 90 tackles last season, 10 tackles for loss. 6 of those, though, came during the first 5 games. Wasn't used heavily over the back half of the year to get into the backfield. Dylan Doyle, though, big-time leader. Really like Matt Jones, 6'3", 237. Kind of took a back seat to Doyle and Terrell Bernard last year, but he forced 3 fumbles, had a pick, 52 tackles. He was a big-time producer for being a number 2 option, I think, at linebacker. Really liked what Matt Jones did for the Bears a season ago. A secondary that was very good last season, 19 picks. They lose 3 starters and plenty of athleticism. Al Walcott, one of those lone returners, 3 picks, had that 96-yarder versus Ole Miss, so they certainly get athleticism and speed out of him. And Christian Morgan, he's one of those seniors at free safety. 29 tackles last year, not impressive numbers-wise, but it's an important part of this defense. Good amount of experience in the back end. I like Mark Melton and Devin Neal to step into starting roles. Overall, top to bottom, getting back 7 starters. They get back important players at all 3 levels. I think the defense will take a small step back just because they don't have as much athleticism as they did last year in the secondary. And of course, those guys like Terrell Bernard at linebacker. I like this defense, but what will the loss of Jalen Petrie and JT Woods? Both of those guys were elite playmakers from their safety positions last year. And Kawan Barnes, of course, his ultra speed. Those are the 3 losses in the back end. Those are big time. Woods' ball skills, Petrie, his ability to make plays in the box. Can't replace players like that. Very interested to see how Dave Aranda replaces those guys. As the Baylor defense, they certainly have a lot of potential. I don't think they're in for a big step back. Looking at the schedule and prediction here, since 2016, Baylor and Iowa State has always been a close series. The home team has won the last 4 games, and in a close contest, we'll take the trend there. I think they'll drop that one, and the BYU. If you're looking at the schedule here, you'll see that I have them losing 5 games, all 5 coming on the road. I think the offensive line will hold up versus a strong Oklahoma State pass rush. All in all, though, Baylor, they lose a lot of firepower on offense, especially at running back and receiver. I'm very interested to see how Blake Shapen does this year. Highly impressed with what he did last year in the limited appearances. They also lose a lot of havoc creators on defense, though, so I don't see any real regression, but I don't think the team will be as strong as it was last season. So I think they're going to lose to some really good teams on the road, and that's behind the 7-5 record prediction. But I think they could certainly be an 8 or 9 win team, depending on which guys on offense can step up and how good this running game is. I don't expect them to have much of a drop-off. I like the 2 running backs they have, and this offensive line, highly impressive. So I think Baylor, they can certainly compete once again, especially since the competition in this conference this year, it's going to be, I think, closer than ever. So Baylor 7-5 is the final verdict. I do think they could certainly win a few more games than that, especially on the road against Iowa State and Texas Tech. That's going to be it for today's episode, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.